All right. So, number one. Do them on the board, go over them orally, all of the above. Sounds good. Annual real estate taxes for 1800 have been paid by seller. Closing is on 10/5/18. So we know that the seller has paid everything. So what are we going to do? We're going to credit who? Credit seller. Debit buyer. All right. How much does the buyer owe the seller in days of taxes? 75 days. So 2 months plus 15, right? So 75 days of taxes is what is owed. Taxes are how much? $5 a day. That is $1,800 divided by 360 gives us 5. So 75 times 5 equals 375. So we debit buyer 375, credit seller 375. I love it. Number 2. What are we looking at for number 2? Same thing. They've not been paid. Closing is on 4/3/18. So they've not been paid. So we are going to do the double debit, right? Debit. Let's do it. Yeah, debit seller. Debit buyer. So how many days is the seller responsible for? 93 days. We know from the last example that it's $5 per day. That's going to get us $465. For the buyer, if it's 93 days, they're going to be responsible for 267 days. Is my math good? Times 5, that's going to equal 1335. 1335 plus 465 is 1800. Guilford County is happy. And we are happy that we prorated taxes correctly. Everybody good on that? All right. Number 3, rent of $1,000 was collected by the seller on 9/1, closing is on 9/22. So, if the seller has all the money, but only is entitled to a portion of it because they didn't own the house for the entire month that they collected rent for, what are we going to do? We're going to debit seller because the seller has too much money. And then we'll turn credit buyer. All right. So how much money should the buyer have? How many days of rent should the buyer have had? 8 days of rent. And the rental amount is
33 per day.
let's see if we can mark it again. It's good. Rent is $1,000 per month divided by 30 equals 33 per day. 8 days times 33 per day. 266, 67, is that
64.
64?
Well, might be right. Wait a minute.
I got 67.
Might be.
I hope not.
You can just have the 3 cents or guys.
33 times 8.
I got 64.
64, I got 64 as well.
They had to get them in.
It's a multiple choice and there won't be 2 answers. So we're crediting the buyer 266.64, so we debit the seller 266.64 because they have all the rent money and we want some of it back. Good? Good. Now we can get into a little bit more fun. Number 4, bank loan of $250,000 at 4.25, closing on 7/14, interest in arrears. How many days of interest does the bank want? 17 days. Fantastic. So we know interest in arrears, it only involves one party. So what are we going to do? We're going to debit one person only.
Buyer.
Debit the buyer. And we said 17 days. And the amount of the loan is $250. And our interest rate is 4.25%. Multiply those together to get our yearly interest.
25.
10,625. That's our yearly. And to get a daily number, divide by 360, and that is $29.51 per day. 17 days times 29.51, 501.67. 501.67. Good? All right, that's great. Let's talk about number 5. It's different. You didn't get to 1, that's a good one not to get to. So let's first talk about an assumption of a loan. Is an assumption of a loan a new loan? No. So on this loan, let's kind of draw out our timeline. So on June 1, who made the June 1st payment? The seller made the payment for interest when? 5/1 to 5/30, right? 6/1 payment with interest in arrears is covering the interest from 5/1 to 5/30. If you could read any of that, it would make perfect sense. But you understand that, right? Let me rewrite that. So the seller paid on 6/1, and that covered the interest from 5/1 to 5/30, right? Interest in arrears. That's that 6/1 payment covered, correct? All right. So let's move over here to 7/1. Who's making the payment on 7/1? The buyer. And that interest is going to be covered from 6/1 to 6/30, right? Did the buyer own the house from 6/1 to 6/30? No. Who owned the house from 6/1 to 6/6? So who's responsible for interest from 6/1 to 6/6? The seller. Who's already paid that interest? The buyer. So what are we going to be doing? We need to debit the seller, and we need to credit the buyer. How many days do we need to credit the seller? Or I'm sorry, how many days do we need to debit the seller? How many days was the seller responsible for interest? That's right, 6 days. And then we can just go back and do the normal math. So at 200,000 at 5% is 10,000. Divide that's yearly interest. And we want daily, so we divide by 360, which gets us 2778 daily interest. $27.78. 6 days at $27.78. And that is $166.68. Is debit seller $166.68? Credit buyer $166.68. How do we feel about that? A little bit different.
I have a question.
Yes.
Why is it 6 days and not 5 for the seller? If
Who
buyer-
owns the house on the 6th? The seller. There's no new loan, so the
But if
money's
the
already
closing-
been there.
If the closing is on the 6th.
Right, but there's not a new loan, so there's no money being sent for, the bank is the same. You remember, we're assuming the loan, the loan's already there, the money's already been sent from the bank, it's just payments going back to the bank. Now, on this payment right here, the seller could also come back and kind of argue, well, I should get some of the principal payment that goes through here too, but typically on a loan assumption, that's not gonna happen. But there could be an argument there, but they would have to have that worked out. So it's just kind of thinking about them, what is a loan assumption, all that stuff, so. Just a little bit different, making sure that we're really reading the questions, understanding who owns the property at different times. And the person who owns the property is the one who's responsible for those expenses at the time. So, number 6. There is a tenant security deposit of $1,000 held by the seller. Tenant is going to remain in the house after closing. So one investor is selling the house to another investor, no change in that. What impact does that have on the settlement statement? None. Should that even be anywhere near the settlement statement? Whose money is that $1,000? The tenants. Whose money is it that gets distributed on the settlement statement and closing disclosures? The sellers and the buyers. Shouldn't go on there. It should be a deposit from one trust account to another trust account. Easiest math question of all. We'll talk more about that next week in landlord tenant when we talk about security deposits. So, how are we feeling? Still good? Except when I give you trick questions?
Yep.
Good. Let's make things more difficult. How much money does somebody need to show up to closing with?
Represent the buyer themselves.
Just bring it all.
That's what I just said.
I don't know, is that what I hired an attorney for?
Try cash. I'll bet cash.
Yep. To be explained how it is. This is the example, not
We're going to do the first one definitely together as a class, depending on how long that takes and where we are. I may have you guys do the other one individually, or we may just do that as a class together. But let's do the first one. This is really kind of putting together everything that we learned in putting the closing package together. So we're almost doing what typically the attorney or the settlement person would be doing. So, let's read this out loud. Purchase price of $425, loan of $373 at 5%, $20,000 earnest money deposit, 1% origination fee, $2,500 initial escrow, homeowner's insurance of $500 must be paid at closing. Other expenses are $1,000, taxes of $4,800 have not been paid, and closing is on 5/7/18. Okay, where do we want to start? Let's start with the first numbers that we have. Purchase price and loan, what's going to be the difference between those two amounts? Down payment. What's our down payment? The difference between that, so 425 minus 373 is 52,000. However, there's been a earnest money of 25,000, right? Or I'm sorry, 2,500. So what do we, oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. How about the, number 2, 20,000 earnest money? So what do we do with that earnest money deposit? Is that money that has, that the seller or the buyer's gonna have to come to closing with, or is that less money that? Less money, because that's cash that's already been paid, so we're gonna subtract 20,000. So now we are over here, we are at 32,000, right? Good so far? All right. We have an origination fee of 1% loan, 1% of the loan. So our loan amount is 373. So we do 373 times 1%. That's going to give us 30,730. There's that money that they're going to have to come up with, or is that money they get credited? So we're going to add that, and that's going to give us 35,730. 35,730. That looks good. How are we doing so far? We're doing it. Step by step, slowly but surely. Lender requires $2,500 initial escrow. So, no math on that one. Escrow, the lender requires it. Who's paying it? Somebody. Doesn't say specifically that the seller's paying it. That's the buyer's paying it. So that is going to be, I want to do that in my head, 38,230. 38,230. So far, so good. Keep on trucking. Homeowners insurance for 500. Add 500. And we're at 38,730. Still good. Buyer's other closing expenses are 1,000. Other. And they're the buyer's expenses, so that's 1,000. And then we have 39,730. Still doing good. Taxes of 400 or 4,800 have not been paid, and closing is on 5/7/18. So we've done this before. Let's figure out our taxes. So taxes of 4,800, and I'm closing on 5/7/18. How many days is the buyer responsible for taxes? 233. Everybody in agreement with that? I am. All right, 233 days. What's our daily tax rate? 4,800 divided by 360 days. 1333. 233 days times 1333 gets us the magic number of 3,066.
Really?
What?
3,166.
6,066 cents, right?
let's see, 233 days. Oh, sure, 233 days times 1333. Yep, 3105.89. So we can round to the nearest dollar, and that is 3106. And so this is tax. And we're going to add that, and so that is going to be 42,836. Everybody still happy? Is that it, or are we forgetting something?
Forgetting the loan,
What are we forgetting on the loan?
the, 24 days that we have to.
The interim interest, exactly right. So, where do we start off with interim interest?
Figure out the annual,
Right. How much is the loan?
373.
373. What's the interest rate?
5%.
5%. What's the total interest, yearly interest of the loan? 18,650. So we have our interest for the year. Convert that to daily. Divide that number by 360. $51, and I got 81 cents.
81 cent rounded, yeah.
Okay, everybody good on that? $51.81 per day. How many days of interim interest are we talking about? Because we're closing on the 7th. 5/7 close. Are we paying interest on 5/7? Yes, because you're getting the money, so that's going to be 24 days. 24 days at 51.81. 24 times 51.81. 1243. We can just round to a whole number of 1243. So we're going to call this interim interest. And we're rounding to whole numbers there, which is 1243. And then we get the magic number of 44. $79. 42,836 plus 1243. 42,836 plus $1,243 is 44,079. That is how much they need to come to closing with. What's that?
That's not happening?
It's not happening?
Too much money.
Too much money? Yeah. It's a lot of money. Not to mention, I already paid 20. So total cash this person needed to actually make this happen was 64 grand. For number 2, you want to do that together? You want to try a stab at that yourselves in small groups?
Let's try that first.
All right, we will spend,
Yeah, let's break.
we'll do 15 minutes, and then we'll see where we end up. And then we'll